Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Nabila Nurhanis binti Muhammad Sabri, and today I will story about how a $9.6 billion lie was exposed by the two brave employees who risked everything. But first of all, let's clarify what is the whistleblowing? So, whistleblowing is the exposing wrongdoing to proper authorized, like a regulatory and enforcement agency. It to serve the public interest. It's not an authorized leaking. So Tyler Schultz and Erica Chiu reported to health regulators and the Wall Street Journal, so they were the legitimate whistleblowers. So now, why is the whistleblowing is so critical in the fraud detection? According to the Association of Certified Fraud Examiners report to the nation 2022, 42% of the occupational frauds are detected through the tips, and the majority of these tips come from the employees. That is the whistleblowers. So this makes the employees whistleblower is the most single effective fraud detection machine. At Theranos, the fraud was sophisticated. The company used proprietary technology claims to avoid the scrutiny, intimidation tactics against the employees, strict non-disclosure agreements, and also a toxic culture of the secrecy. Without these whistleblowers, thousands of the patients would have received life-threatening misdiagnosis. So now let's examine the sequence of events that show that how the Theranos fraud was ultimately exposed. So, in 2003, Elizabeth Olmos found the Theranos promising revelatory blood test from just a single drop of blood from the fingerprint. By 2013, it launched in the Walgreens pharmacy. The company's valuation reached billions. The media dubbed Elizabeth the next Steve Jobs. But when the April 2013, Erica Chuen, a recent Berkeley graduate, joined the Theranos as a lab associate, within months, she began noticing something was very wrong. This because the test result was inconsistent, the machine consistently malfunctioned, and the quality control was discarded. And when the September 2013, Tyler Shelton, grandson of the George Shelton, a Theranos board member, joined as a research engineer, he also started seeing a red flag. And then, at the November 2014, Erica Chuen resigned and reported to the New York State Department of Health about the serious laboratory deficiencies. In 2015, Tyler raised the concern internally but was threatened. He then contacted the journalist who is a John Carreyrou at the Wall Street Journal. So in October 2015, the Carreyrou article exposed the fraud. The Theranos retaliated aggressively. Tyler spent over $400,000 on legal fees and lost his relationship with his grandfather, George Shelton, a Theranos board of members. In 2016 to 2018, this is the collapse, which is in 2016 the CMS being the Holmes from the owning labs, and in 2018 the Theranos dissolved. The Holmes and her CEO faced the fraud charges. And last, in January 2022, Holmes was convicted on the 4 counts of the fraud and sentenced to 11 years in the prison. Tyler and Erica were finally vindicated. So we have seen the timeline and the correlation too, but what actually was the fraudulent conduct at the Theranos? So Amirul will break down the improper conduct, the whistleblowers action, and how the organization responded.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Amir Ashraf bin Muhammad Safri. Now I will explain about the Theranos whistleblowing case by focusing on the sequence of events, the misconduct involved, the actions taken by the whistleblowers, and also the response from the organization and authorities involved. Before we begin onto the details, let me introduce the whistleblowers who exposed the fraud that happened in Theranos. The first whistleblower is Tyler Schultz. Tyler Schultz started working for Theranos in 2013 and he was an enthusiastic follower of Holmes' vision. He was given a full-time position on the diagnostic team and he soon encountered problems with the test results. Despite the erroneous results, reports will be documented in the internal statistics department where the data was being altered. Schultz noticed that no one was exactly aware of the way analysing machine worked. Even the inspectors were denied access to the laboratory where the machines would be installed. This was because the blood tests there were not run through the Theranos' own devices, but through the third-party equipment. Another whistleblower is Erica Chung. Erica Chung is the lab assistant who also joined the company because she was excited by Holmes' vision. Chung worked in the Theranos lab for 6 months in 2013 and also 2014 before discovering that faulty test results were being erased. When she had her own blood tested by a Theranos machine, the results indicated a vitamin B deficiency that conventional tests disprove. She brought the problems to the attention of Balwani, but he questioned her competence. Theranos then began harassing Chung, hiring private investigators who followed her. She later said that she felt so threatened and monitored that she changed residence several times and got a prepaid phone so her calls could not be monitored. So, moving on to the first part is the sequence of events that leads to the whistleblowing act. The whistleblowing at Theranos began internally when the employees working in the laboratories started to notice serious problems with the company's blood testing technology. Laboratory staff, including Erika Chung and also Tyler Schultz, observed that the machines often produced inconsistent and also the wrong results. These errors were concerning because the test results were being used by the real patients to make the medical decisions. The employees raised these issues internally to the supervisors and also to the management. However, instead of investigating the problems, the senior management dismissed their concerns and also questioned the competence of the employees. Theranos also enforced very strict confidentiality agreements, which discouraged staff from openly discussing problems. At the same time, the management focused heavily on protecting the company's image and also maintaining the investor confidence. As pressure increased to meet the business targets, the employees were instructed to dilute the blood samples and run tests using the traditional laboratory machines, while the company continued to claim publicly that the tests were performed using its Edison technology. Over time, this created a clear gap between what Theranos claimed publicly and also what was actually happening internally. When the employees realized that the internal reporting was ineffective and patient safety was being compromised, they faced an ethical dilemma. This failure of internal reporting systems eventually led to the whistleblowers to disclose the misconduct externally. The next part is about the improper conduct that is disclosed in Theranos. The whistleblowers exposed several serious forms of improper conduct happened at Theranos. There are three major misconducts occurred. The first one, the company misrepresented the capabilities of its blood testing technology. Theranos claimed it could perform hundreds of tests using just a few drops of blood, but internally, the technology was unreliable and also unproven. The second one, the company concealed its reliance on conventional laboratory machines while marketing its services as revolutionary. This deception misled the investors, the business partners, and also the public. The third one, Theranos failed to comply with basic laboratory and also regulatory standards, which resulted in wrong test results and posed risk to the patient health. The third part is the actions that are being taken by the whistleblowers. When the internal reporting failed, the whistleblowers took courageous steps to act externally. In 2015, Erika Chung resigned from Theranos and she wrote a letter to the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, or CMS, which is the regulatory agency, exposing the problems at the Theranos labs, highlighting serious laboratory deficiencies and also patient safety risk. The agency then undertook a surprise inspection of the startup's labs, which uncovered numerous violations. On the other hand, Tyler Schultz provided information to the investigative journalist, whose name is John Carrero, the Wall Street Journal reporter, which played a key role in exposing the scandal to the public. With the help of Schultz's information and also his own research, Carrero published an internet article in October 2015 revealing that Theranos was not using its own machine for the blood test and that the Edison device provided unreliable results. Theranos denied all the allegations as false while threatening Carrero and Schultz with lawsuits. These actions were not easy. The whistleblowers faced with legal threats, intimidation, and also emotional stress, as Theranos attempted to silence them through aggressive legal tactics and also non-disclosure agreements. Despite this risk, the whistleblowers continued to disclose information because they believed it was their ethical duty to protect the patients and also uphold the professional integrity. The last one for my part is the response of the organization and also from the relevant authorities. Theranos' initial response to the whistleblowing was defensive and hostile. Instead of addressing the allegations, the company denied the wrongdoings and used legal threats to intimidate the whistleblowers. The management focused on protecting the company's reputation rather than investigating the claims. However, once the disclosures gained the public attention, the regulatory authorities intervened. The Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, or CMS, conducted inspections and found serious violations of laboratory standards. As a result, Theranos was sanctioned and forced to shut down its testing operations. Further action was taken by the United States Securities and Exchange Commission, or SEC, which charged Theranos and its executive with fraud for misleading the investors. The Department of Justice later pursued criminal charges, leading to the conviction and imprisonment of Elizabeth Holmes. These regulatory and legal actions ultimately led to the collapse of Theranos.
What if telling the truth didn't save life, but destroyed yours? At Theranos, two young scientists, Erika Chung and Tyler Schultz, discovered that blood test results were being manipulated. When they spoke up, the company fought back. Theranos hired powerful lawyers like David Boyce. Tyler's family spent $400,000 on legal fees. They were watched, threatened, isolated, and pushed to stay silent. Tyler even confronts his own grandfather, George Schultz, a Theranos board member, because he refused to attach his name to a lie. But it was not about money, it was about life. Faulty Theranos machines, like the Edison device, were used in real pharmacies such as Walgreens. Wrong potassium result could lead to wrong heart treatment, even death. The reports reached regulators and journalists, including John Carrier. Labs were shut down. Investigations began. Theranos collapsed. In the end, Elizabeth Holmes and Sunny Balwani were charged. Whistleblowers paid a heavy price, but they were protected media. Why would someone risk their career and their life just to speak up? For Erica Cheong and Tyler Schultz, integrity came first. In science, data is everything, and at Theranos, data was being manipulated. They refused to attach their names to a lie. Tyler even confronts his own grandfather, board member George Schultz, to protect scientific integrity. They knew Theranos had aggressive lawyers like David Boyce. They knew retaliation was coming. But they were not trying to destroy the company. They were trying to protect people. Theranos machines, like the Edison, were used on real patients. A wrong potassium level could mean the wrong heart treatment and death. When internal systems failed, they became the last line of defense. In a culture of fake it till you make it, whistleblowers became the final check and balance. This shows that healthcare innovation can be built on lie because life are not prototypes. They were not traitors. They were guided by a moral compass, protecting humanity over profits. For the Theranos whistleblowers, the price of truth was terrifying. Erica Cheong fed watch, followed by private investigators. Theranos used aggressive NDAs, twisting trade secrets to hide scientific fraud. Tyler Schultz faced elite lawyers like boss Shields Flexner. His family spent nearly $400,000 to $500,000 just to defend him. They were labeled traitors. Erica stepped away from medical technology, afraid she had been blacklisted across Silicon Valley. But their courage stopped millions of inaccurate blood tests. The wrong potassium result could mean the wrong health treatment and death. In the end, Elizabeth Holmes and Sunny Balwani faced justice. Erica Cheong now speaks at Stanford and Berkeley. Their stories spark stronger whistleblowers protection worldwide. High risk, high impact. They lost money, peace, and relationships, but they saved life and reshaped corporate ethics forever.
Behind every act of whistleblowing lies a profound personal cost. For those who exposed Theranos, the psychological and emotional toll was devastating.
The really hurtful time was actually after all of this had come out. When it was no longer a question of whether or not Tyler is right or Elizabeth is right. It was Tyler is right, and he continued to support Elizabeth. That's when it got really tough. That's when it became unfathomable.
Tyler Schultz, grandson of former Secretary of State George Schultz, faced unimaginable pressure. He was sued by Theranos, forced to spend over $400,000 in legal fees, which money he didn't have. But the financial burden was just the beginning. His relationship with his grandfather, a man he deeply admired, was shattered. George Schultz chose to believe Elizabeth Holmes over his own grandson. Tyler experienced isolation, betrayal, and the constant fear of legal retaliation. The stress was so severe that he struggled with anxiety and sleepless nights, wondering if speaking out had cost him everything. Erica Cheong, a recent graduate working in Theranos lab, faced her own nightmare. After reporting inaccurate blood test results, she lived in constant fear of career destruction. She was blacklisted in the industry, struggled to find work, and carried the crushing guilt of knowing that faulty tests may have harmed real patients. Imagine being in your early 20s, trying to do the right thing, only to watch your professional reputation crumble. Erica experienced depression, self-doubt, and the isolating burden of being labeled a troublemaker. The emotional scars lasted 4 years. Research shows that whistleblowers often develop symptoms similar to post-traumatic stress disorder, anxiety, depression, hypervigilance, and a profound sense of betrayal by institutions they once trusted. But their suffering raises a critical question. Were they ethically obligated to speak up? Whistleblowers face an agonizing ethical conflict. On one side, there's loyalty to your employer, your colleagues, and your career. On the other side, there's duty to patients, to truth, to society. In Theranos' case, the stakes were life and death. Faulty blood tests were giving patients incorrect diagnosis for conditions like cancer, HIV, and pregnancy. Should Tyler and Erica have stayed silent to protect their careers, or did they have a moral obligation to protect innocent lives? The answer seems clear now, but in the moment, the choice required extraordinary moral courage. We can analyze their decision through three ethical lenses. From a utilitarian perspective, their whistleblowings created the greatest good for the greatest number. They prevented harm to thousands of potential patients. Through a deontological lens, they fulfilled their moral duty to tell the truth regardless of personal consequences. Kant would argue that they treated patients as end in themselves, not as means to corporate profit. And from the virtue ethics, they exemplified courage, integrity, and justice. They become the kind of people our society desperately needs. So, what we have learned from the Theranos whistleblower case. First, Theranos systematically defrauded investors of hundreds of millions of dollars and endangered real patients with inaccurate medical tests. This wasn't just a corporate misconduct, it was a public health crisis. Second, the whistleblowers, Tyler Schultz and Erica Chung, paid an enormous personal price. They faced legal threats, financial ruin, career destruction, and profound psychological trauma. Their courage came at tremendous cost. Despite everything, their actions saved lives. They exposed fraud, protected patients, and ultimately brought justice. Their whistleblowing triggered federal investigation that shut down Theranos and led to criminal charges against Elizabeth Holmes. And finally, their story proves that ethical duty sometimes demands personal sacrifice. When lives are at stake, silence becomes complicity. They choose conscience over comfort and truth over loyalty. So, the question we must ask ourselves is simple. Would we have the courage to do the same?
Okay, next we talk about the reflection and what solution that we can make. But before that, imagine this, right? You're into your 20s, fresh out of college, working at a company that promised to revolutionize healthcare. The founder is celebrated as the next Steve Jobs, and the mission? To save life with a single drop of blood. But then, after working for a few months, you discover the truth. The technology doesn't even work. Patient could be misdiagnosed, investors are being misled, and you're just one employee. But you must decide. Do you stay as silent or do you speak up? This was the reality faced by the Tyler Schultz, the whistleblower in the Theranos scandal. The Theranos case is not just about fraud, it's about courage, culture, and also accountability. We can learn few things in this case where first one is that innovation without integrity is dangerous. Why? Theranos show us that hype can blind even the smartest investor. Vision must always be tested against the evidence itself. Next is the whistleblower, our guardians of truth. Tyler Schultz risked his career, his reputation, even his relationship with his own family, his grandfather, George Schultz, to expose the fraud. His story reminds us that ethical courage often comes at personal cost. Next is that culture can silence or empower the truth. Where inside the Theranos, secrecy and fear ruled. Employees signed NDAs, faced intimidation, and were discouraged from asking questions. Contrast that with organizations where transparency is celebrated, where speaking up is seen as loyalty to truth and not betrayal. So, what we can learn? First of all, protect whistleblower. Laws and corporate policies must shield them from retaliation. Second is that demand evidence. Boards, investors, and regulators should insist on independent validation, not just glossy pictures. Build ethical cultures. Leaders must create safe space for dissent, where questioning is not punished, instead rewarded. Educate for integrity. University and companies should train future leaders to recognize ethical dilemmas and ethical courage. The Theranos whistleblower case is not just history, it's a mirror. It asks us when faced with deception, will we choose silence or will we choose the truth? Because in the end, innovation can change the world, but only if it's built on integrity. So, next time you're in a position to speak up, remember tell the shots, remember Theranos. And remember this, the courage to tell the truth is the most powerful innovation of all. Thank you very much.